The alarm bells rang through the crystal halls of Nexus Prime, deep in the heart of the massive ring world. The Galactic Council faced something they had not seen in over 3,000 years: fear. High, crystal arch Zexthal stood in the center of the great chamber. His crystal body glowed with angry red light as he read the reports floating before him. Each document told the same story. Humans were expanding, fast, too fast. "Impossible," whispered Lumina, the energy being who spoke for the Luminous race. Her bright form flickered with worry. "The humans only learned to travel between stars 300 years ago. They should still be children playing with simple tools." Around the chamber, representatives from 12 species sat in their ancient seats. Each race had ruled parts of the galaxy for thousands of years. Each thought they knew everything about the young human race. They were wrong. Architect Prime 7 spoke in its cold metal voice. "The data is clear. Human settlements have appeared in 47 new systems in the past year alone. They are building structures we do not recognize. Their ships move in ways that break our understanding of physics." The reports kept coming. Human colonies had appeared overnight in places where no ship should be able to travel. They had built cities on worlds that should have taken decades to terraform. Most worrying of all, their ships had been seen passing through asteroid fields and even small moons as if they were made of air. "They must be stopped," growled Commander Thrak of the Krogan hegemony. His massive form shook with anger. The Krogans had been the military might of the Council for 2,000 years. They did not like being confused by human technology they could not understand. Zexthal raised one crystal arm for silence. "We have tried to contact them. They respond to our messages, but they tell us nothing useful. They claim their expansion is peaceful. They say they are simply exploring and building homes for their people." "Lies," hissed Sub-Queen Valandra of the Hive Collective. Her insect features twisted with distrust. "No species expands this quickly without military purpose. The humans plan to conquer us all." The chamber filled with angry voices. Some called for immediate war, others demanded investigations. A few suggested trying to steal human technology for themselves. Through it all, Zexthal remained silent, thinking. The truth was worse than any of them wanted to admit. The Galactic Council had ruled space for 10,000 years because they controlled the strongest weapons and fastest ships. They had technology that could destroy entire worlds. They had barriers that could stop any attack. They had knowledge gathered from 100 dead civilizations, but the humans had something else. Something new. 3 days earlier, a council patrol had encountered a human vessel near the edge of known space. The ship had appeared on their sensors for exactly 12 seconds. In that time, it had somehow scanned their entire fleet, passed through their shields without triggering any alarms, and vanished again. The patrol commander swore the human ship had been there one moment and gone the next, like a ghost. "We need answers," Zexthal said finally. "If the humans have developed new technology, we must understand it. If they plan to threaten the peace of the galaxy, we must stop them." "Then what do you suggest?" asked Minister Corvid of the Diplomatic Corps. The small, gray-skinned alien had been mediating disputes between species for over 2 centuries. He had never seen the Council so worried about a single race. Zexthal's crystal body pulsed with decision. "We summon them. We call the humans to account for their actions. Let them come here to Nexus Prime and explain themselves before the full might of the Galactic Council." The idea was bold. No species had been summoned to the council chambers for over 1,000 years. It was considered the highest insult, reserved for races that had committed terrible crimes against galactic peace. The last species to receive such a summons had been the Plague Bearers, who had tried to infect entire worlds with mind-controlling parasites. "They have been destroyed utterly. The humans will refuse," said Lumina. "They are proud. Their leaders speak of independence and freedom. They will not come willingly to face our judgment." "Then we make it clear that refusal is not an option," rumbled Thrak. "We send our largest ships to their home system. We show them that cooperation is their only choice." Architect Prime 7 calculated quickly. "Earth has a population of 12 billion humans. Their system contains mining operations on 6 worlds and 3 major space stations. A show of force would demonstrate our superior numbers. Zexthel nodded. Prepare the summons. Make it formal. Tell the humans that the Galactic Council requires their immediate attendance to explain their recent activities. Tell them that failure to comply will result in ... consequences. The chamber grew quiet as each representative considered what those consequences might be. The Council had many ways to punish uncooperative species. Economic sanctions that could starve entire worlds. Military blockades that could trap civilizations in their home systems. In extreme cases, they had the power to declare a species an enemy of galactic peace and authorize their complete destruction. Surely the humans would not risk such punishment. They were still young, still learning their place in the galaxy. They would see reason. Minister Corvat began drafting the message immediately. He chose his words carefully, using the formal language that had been developed over thousands of years of diplomatic contact. The summons would be translated into human languages and delivered by the fastest council ships. To the governing bodies of the human species, the message began. The Galactic Council hereby summons representatives of humanity to appear before the full assembly at Nexus Prime. Recent human activities have been noted with growing concern by multiple member species. The rapid expansion of human settlements into previously unclaimed systems, combined with the deployment of unregistered technologies, requires immediate explanation. The message continued for several pages, listing specific incidents and demanding detailed explanations. It mentioned the mysterious appearances of human ships in impossible locations. It noted the construction of structures that did not match any known architectural patterns. It demanded to know how humans had managed to terraform hostile worlds in record time. The Council expects full cooperation in this matter, the message concluded. Humanity will send appropriate representatives to Nexus Prime within 30 standard days. These representatives will be prepared to provide complete technical specifications for all new human technologies and detailed plans for future expansion activities. Failure to comply with this summons will be viewed as an act of hostility toward the Galactic Council and will result in appropriate responses. The message was polite on the surface, but every species in the galaxy would recognize it for what it truly was, a threat wrapped in diplomatic language. Submit or face the consequences. As the Council ships prepared to carry the summons to Earth, none of the assembled representatives noticed the small fluctuations in their sensor readings. Deep in the dark matter that surrounded all normal space, things were moving, watching, waiting. The humans had been expecting this summons for months. They had seen the Council patrol ships gathering at the edges of human space. They had detected the increased communications between Council worlds. They knew their rapid expansion had not gone unnoticed. What the Council did not know was that humanity had been preparing for this moment since the day they first ventured beyond their home system. They had always known that eventually they would have to face the older, more established powers of the galaxy. They had planned accordingly. In secret laboratories hidden in asteroid fields and empty space, human scientists had pushed the boundaries of physics itself. They had unlocked secrets that other species had deemed too dangerous to explore. They had built weapons that existed partially outside the normal universe, ships that could travel through dimensions the Council did not even know existed. The summons would be delivered to Earth in 3 days. The human response would surprise everyone. As Zexthel dismissed the Council session, he felt a strange sensation in his crystal matrix. For just a moment, it seemed as if something vast and invisible had brushed against his consciousness. Something that watched from the spaces between spaces. Patient and ready, he dismissed the feeling as stress from the day's decisions. The Galactic Council had faced many challenges over the millennia. They had survived the Plague-Bearer Wars, the Silicon Uprising, and the Great Expansion. A single young species with some new technology would not threaten their ancient authority. The humans would come to Nexus Prime. They would submit to Council authority. They would accept their place in the established order of the galaxy. Zexthel was certain of this. He was also completely wrong. Admiral Sarah Chun stood at the observation deck of Luna Station, watching Earth turn slowly below. The blue marble that held 12 billion human souls looked peaceful from this distance. But Sarah knew that peace was about to be tested in ways no one could imagine. Behind her, the emergency session of the unified Earth government was coming to an end. For the past 6 hours, world leaders had debated how to respond to the Galactic Council's summons. Some wanted to ignore it completely. Others suggested sending a polite refusal. A few even recommended surrendering to whatever the Council demanded. Sarah had listened to it all with growing impatience. None of them understood what humanity was truly capable of now. "Admiral Chun," called President Martinez as the session broke up. "The decision has been made. You will represent humanity at Nexus Prime." Sarah turned from the window. "And Dr. Webb?" "He goes with you, of course. The Council wants to know about our technology. Marcus is the only one who can explain it properly." The President paused. "Are you certain about this plan?" "The risks are enormous." Sarah smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Mr. President, the Galactic Council thinks they're dealing with the same primitive humans who barely crawled out of their solar system 3 centuries ago. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Across the station, Dr. Marcus Webb was putting the finishing touches on the equipment they would need. The small, brilliant scientist had spent the last 5 years perfecting humanity's greatest secret. Now that secret would be revealed to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. Marcus had been working on dark matter manipulation since he was a graduate student 30 years ago. Back then, everyone said it was impossible. Dark matter made up most of the universe, but it barely interacted with normal matter at all. It was invisible, untouchable, and completely beyond human understanding. Everyone had been wrong. The breakthrough came when Marcus realized that humans were approaching the problem backwards. Every other species in the galaxy tried to force dark matter to behave like normal matter. They wanted to touch it, control it, make it solid and real. Humans did the opposite. Instead of forcing dark matter to come into normal space, they learned to send normal matter into dark matter space. They built ships that could exist in both dimensions at once. They created weapons that fired from dark space into normal space. They developed shields that could phase between realities faster than any enemy could track. The first test had been terrifying. The prototype ship HSS Phantom had simply vanished from all sensors for 3 hours. When it reappeared, the crew reported that they had traveled completely through a moon and back again. The moon had not noticed. That was 7 years ago. Since then, humanity had built an entire fleet of dark matter warships. They existed in the spaces between spaces, invisible to every known form of detection. They could appear anywhere in the galaxy without warning. They could strike targets that thought they were completely protected. They could phase through any barrier ever built. The Galactic Council had no idea these ships existed. "The Prometheus is ready for departure," reported Captain Ellis as Sarah and Marcus boarded the diplomatic vessel. The ship looked exactly like what it was supposed to be, a standard human diplomatic transport. Nothing about its sleek white hull suggested it carried the 2 people who were about to change galactic history forever, but looks were deceiving. Hidden in the Prometheus were sensors and communication devices that no other species would recognize. The ship could coordinate with the dark matter fleet in ways the Council could never detect. Every move, every conversation, every decision made aboard the Prometheus would be instantly shared with the invisible armada surrounding them. "How many ships do we have in position?" Sarah asked as they settled into the command center. 47 dark matter vessels are currently deployed throughout Council space, Ellis replied. "The Revenant is maintaining position just outside Nexus Prime. She's been there for 3 weeks, completely undetected." Marcus nodded with satisfaction. The HSS Revenant was humanity's flagship, a massive vessel that existed primarily in dark matter space. She carried enough exotic matter weapons to level entire continents. More importantly, she carried the proof that humanity had transcended the normal rules of physics. The journey to Nexus Prime would take 12 days using conventional faster-than-light travel. The Council had specifically requested that humanity arrive using normal space lanes, probably so they could track and monitor the human ship every step of the way. Sarah was happy to comply. Let them watch the Prometheus. Let them think they knew exactly where humanity's representatives were at all times. They had no idea about the invisible escort surrounding them. As the Prometheus departed Earth's solar system, Sarah reviewed everything they knew about the Galactic Council. The ancient alliance of 12 species had ruled known space for 10,000 years. They had the largest military forces, the most advanced conventional technology, and the accumulated knowledge of 100 conquered civilizations. But they also had weaknesses. They were proud. They were set in their ways. They believed their technology was the best possible because it was the oldest and most refined. They could not imagine that a young species like humanity might discover something completely beyond their understanding. "Admiral," Marcus said quietly as they watched the stars stream past, "are you sure we're doing the right thing? Once we reveal what we can do, there's no going back." "The galaxy will never be the same," Sarah considered the question carefully. She had been asking herself the same thing for months. The power to phase between dimensions was incredible, but it was also terrifying. In the wrong hands, dark matter technology could destroy entire civilizations. It could tear apart the fabric of space itself, but humanity had not asked for this confrontation. The Council had summoned them, demanded answers, threatened consequences. They wanted to treat humans like children who needed adult supervision. They wanted to inspect human technology and control human expansion. That was unacceptable. "Marcus, our species spent 300 years being the newcomers. We followed Council laws, accepted Council trade agreements, and stayed in the systems they said we could have. We played by their rules even when those rules were unfair." Sarah gestured toward the view screen showing the vast emptiness of space. "But we never stopped exploring. We never stopped pushing boundaries. We never stopped asking questions that other species were afraid to ask. And because of that, we found something incredible. The Council wants us to share that discovery so they can control it. They want to decide how dark matter technology should be used, who should have access to it, and what limits should be placed on it. They want to keep humanity under their authority forever." Marcus nodded slowly. "And you think that's wrong?" "I think it's impossible," Sarah replied. "You can't control knowledge once it exists. You can't put limits on discovery." The Council built their power on being the most advanced species in the galaxy, but advancement doesn't stop just because you want it to. Over the next 12 days, the Prometheus made its way steadily toward Nexus Prime. Council patrol ships intercepted them twice, conducting what they called routine inspections. Sarah allowed the aliens aboard with perfect politeness. Let them scan everything they wanted. Let them confirm that the Prometheus carried only standard human technology. The Council inspectors found exactly what they expected to find. A diplomatic vessel with normal engines, standard shields, and conventional weapons. They detected no signs of the revolutionary technology that had allowed humanity to expand so rapidly. They left satisfied that they understood exactly what they were dealing with. They were completely wrong, hidden in dimensions they could not perceive. 47 dark matter warships continued their silent escort. Each ship was a miracle of human engineering, existing partially outside normal space-time. Their crews watched the Council inspections with amusement. The alien technology was impressive by conventional standards, but it might as well have been stone tools compared to what humanity had achieved. "The Council has no idea what's coming," observed Commander Torres from the bridge of the HSS Phantom. Her ship had been shadowing a Council battlecruiser for 3 days, completely undetected. She could have destroyed the massive vessel at any time simply by phasing her weapons into normal space inside their shields, but destruction was not the goal. Not yet. Humanity wanted understanding, not war. They wanted respect, not conquest. The dark matter fleet was insurance, not aggression. On the 10th day of the journey, Marcus received a coded transmission from Earth. The message was brief but important. Project Revelation approved. Full authority granted. Show them everything. Sarah read the message and felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. The leaders of humanity had made their choice. No more hiding. No more pretending to be the junior species in galactic affairs. It was time for the galaxy to learn what humans had become. Marcus, prepare the demonstration package. Full technical specifications, complete theoretical framework, and live examples of dark matter manipulation. You want to show them everything? Marcus asked in surprise. Everything, Sarah confirmed. They want to inspect our technology? Fine. They can inspect technology that will rewrite every physics textbook in the galaxy. They want to understand how we expanded so quickly? We'll show them ships that can travel through dimensions they don't even know exist. The Prometheus was still 2 days away from Nexus Prime when the Council sent another message. This one was different from the formal summons. It was shorter, more direct, and carried undertones of real concern. To Admiral Chun and Dr. Webb, the message began. The Galactic Council has received reports of unusual sensor readings in several systems along your route. These readings do not correspond to any known technology or natural phenomenon. Please, explain the nature of these anomalies immediately. Sarah read the message twice before laughing out loud. The Council's sensors were finally detecting traces of the dark matter fleet. Not the ships themselves, that was still impossible with their technology, but the tiny ripples in spacetime that 47 vessels created when they moved between dimensions. They're starting to worry, Marcus observed. Good, Sarah replied. Let them worry. In 2 days, they'll have much bigger concerns. She composed a reply that was perfectly honest and completely unhelpful. The anomalies you have detected are side effects of human exploration activities. Full details will be provided during our scheduled appearance before the Council. It was the truth. The dark matter fleet was indeed engaged in exploration. They were exploring what happened when you brought weapons from dark space into a Council stronghold. But the Council would not understand that until it was too late to matter. As Nexus Prime appeared on their sensors, Sarah felt the weight of history settling on her shoulders. In a few hours, she would walk into the most secure location in the galaxy and tell the 12 most powerful species in known space that their authority was obsolete. They would not take it well, but they would have no choice but to accept it. Because invisible all around them, humanity's dark matter fleet was already in position. The galaxy was about to change forever. The Council Chamber of Nexus Prime was the most impressive structure in known space. Built over 10,000 years ago from a single massive crystal formation. It rose from the surface of the ring world like a mountain made of light. Inside, the great amphitheater could hold representatives from every species in the galaxy. Today, it was fuller than it had been in centuries. Admiral Sarah Chun and Dr. Marcus Webb walked through the main entrance, their footsteps echoing in the vast space. Above them, the crystal ceiling stretched up for nearly a kilometer, its surface alive with shifting patterns of color that responded to the emotional states of everyone present. Right now, those patterns showed mostly red and orange: anger, suspicion, and fear. Impressive, Marcus whispered as they took their assigned seats in the center of the chamber. But I noticed they put us right in the middle of everything. Makes us easy targets if this goes badly. Sarah smiled grimly. They have no idea how badly this could go for them. Around the circular chamber, representatives from 12 species occupied raised platforms that looked down on the human delegation. Each platform was designed to accommodate different alien anatomies, from the crystalline forms of the Veltar to the energy beings of the Luminose race. The highest platform sat High Crystallarch Zexthal, his crystal body pulsing with authority. To his right, Lumina floated as a ball of controlled plasma. To his left, Architect Prime 7 stood motionless in its mechanical shell. Around the circle, the other council members watched the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to outright hostility. The chamber filled slowly as observers arrived. This was not just a formal hearing, it was the most significant diplomatic event in generations. Representatives from dozens of minor species had come to watch. Military officials from every major fleet wanted to see how the upstart humans would handle council authority. Scientists and diplomats filled the upper galleries, eager to witness history being made. None of them suspected they were about to see the end of an era. The council recognizes the human delegation, Zexthal announced, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. Admiral Sarah Chun and Dr. Marcus Webb, you have been summoned to explain the recent actions of your species. The council has grave concerns about human expansion and technology development. Sarah stood slowly, taking her time to look around the chamber. 47 invisible warships surrounded this structure, each one capable of phasing weapons directly through the legendary shields that protected Nexus Prime. Every person in this chamber was completely at humanity's mercy, and none of them knew it. High Crystal Arch, Sarah said formally. Humanity thanks the Council for this opportunity to address your concerns. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The humans were being polite, respectful even. Many of the observers had expected defiance or anger. This calm response was somehow more unsettling. Commander Thrak of the Krogan hegemony stood up on his platform. His massive form cast shadows across the chamber floor. Enough pleasantries. We want answers. How did your species terraform 6 worlds in less than 2 years? How are your ships appearing in systems where no vessel should be able to travel? What technology are you hiding from the galaxy? Other council members began speaking at once. Sub-Queen Vilandra accused humanity of violating expansion treaties. Minister Corvette demanded technical specifications for all human innovations. The Architect Collective requested detailed construction plans for human colonies. Through it all, Sarah remained standing calmly in the center of the chamber. She let the accusations wash over her, waiting for the right moment to respond. Beside her, Marcus was quietly scanning the chamber's defensive systems with equipment the council would not recognize. Are you quite finished? Sarah asked when the voices finally died down. Zexthul's crystal form pulsed with irritation. You will answer the questions posed to you, human. This is not a negotiation. You're absolutely right, Sarah replied. This is not a negotiation. This is a demonstration. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Around the chamber, the alien representative shifted uneasily. Something in Sarah's tone suggested that the humans had not come here to beg for mercy or explain themselves like children caught breaking rules. Demonstration of what? Demanded Lumina, her energy form flickering with suspicion. Sarah gestured to Marcus, who stepped forward with a small device in his hands. It looked harmless enough. Just a metal cube about the size of a person's fist. But the readings it was giving off made several council sensors start beeping in alarm. Dr. Webb will now explain how humanity achieved the impossible, Sarah announced. Marcus? Marcus activated the device, and immediately the air around him began to shimmer. Honored council members, what you are witnessing is the manipulation of dark matter. This small device is partially phasing in and out of normal space-time. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Dark matter was theoretical to most species. A few had detected its presence in the universe, but none had ever successfully interacted with it. The idea that humans had not only touched dark matter but learned to control it was beyond comprehension. Impossible, stated Architect Prime. 7. Dark matter exists outside normal physical interaction. It cannot be manipulated by conventional technology. You're correct, Marcus agreed. Conventional technology cannot touch dark matter. But humanity developed unconventional technology. He pressed another control on the device. Suddenly his entire arm became translucent like a ghost. Council members gasped as Marcus reached toward the chamber's central podium and passed his hand completely through the solid crystal structure. We learned to phase matter between dimensions, Marcus explained as his arm returned to normal. Objects in dark matter space can pass through normal matter as if it doesn't exist. They become invisible to conventional sensors. They can travel through barriers that should be impossible to cross. Sub-Queen Vilandra's insect features twisted with disbelief. You expect us to believe that humans have mastered dimensional manipulation? A technology that escaped our greatest scientists for thousands of years? I don't expect you to believe anything, Marcus replied calmly. I expect you to observe and learn. He pressed a third control. This time, the entire central area of the chamber began to fill with shimmering light. Slowly, a shape began to materialize in the air above the human delegation. It was massive, dark, and clearly artificial. The council members stared in growing horror as they realized what they were seeing. A section of Starship Hull was phasing into normal space directly inside their most secure chamber. The legendary shields of Nexus Prime, barriers that had protected the council for millennia, might as well have been made of paper. This is a small portion of the HSS Revenant, Sarah explained as alarms began sounding throughout the chamber. She has been positioned above this facility for 3 weeks. Your sensors never detected her because she exists primarily in dark matter space. Panic spread through the upper galleries as observers realized the implications. A human warship had been hiding inside the most protected location in the galaxy. The Council's entire security system had been meaningless. How many ships? Zexthal asked, his crystal form now pulsing with fear instead of anger. 47 dark matter vessels are currently deployed throughout Council space, Sarah replied. Matter-of-factly. They have been observing your activities and protecting human interests for several years now. The number hit the Council like a physical blow. 47 warships, each one capable of appearing anywhere without warning, each one able to strike through any defense. The military balance they had assumed was completely false. Commander Thrak was the first to recover from the shock. This is an act of war? You have brought weapons into our territory without permission. We brought explorers and scientists, Sarah corrected. The fact that our ships can serve as weapons is secondary to their primary mission of expanding human knowledge and ensuring our security. Security from what? Demanded Minister Corvette. The Council has never threatened humanity. Sarah's expression hardened. The Council summoned us here like criminals. You demanded we explain ourselves as if we were children who had misbehaved. You threatened consequences if we did not comply with your authority. What exactly did you think we would do? The chamber fell silent as the reality of the situation became clear. The Council had expected to intimidate humanity into submission. Instead, they had provoked a demonstration of power that made their own military forces look primitive. This changes everything, whispered Lumina. Yes, it does, Sarah agreed. For 10,000 years, the Council has maintained peace through superior technology and military strength. You controlled space because you had the best ships and the strongest weapons? That era is now over? Marcus deactivated his device, and the section of Starship Hull faded back into dark matter space. But the message had been delivered clearly. Humanity could place armed vessels anywhere in the galaxy without detection. They could strike any target through any defense. The old rules no longer applied. What do you want? Zexthal asked quietly. It was the question Sarah had been waiting for. We want recognition that humanity is no longer a junior member of galactic civilization. We want acknowledgement that our expansion and development activities are our own. Concern, we want to be treated as equals, not as subjects. And if we refuse? Commander Thrak growled. Sarah's smile was not pleasant. Then you will discover that dark matter weapons are even more impressive than dark matter ships. The threat was clear, but Sarah hoped it would not come to that. Humanity did not want to destroy the Galactic Council. They wanted to transform it. The galaxy was big enough for everyone, but it needed new leadership that understood the realities of dimensional technology. You claim this technology is for peaceful purposes, Sub-Queen Valandra said suspiciously. But you have turned it into weapons of war. Every technology can become a weapon, Marcus replied. The same knowledge that allows us to explore dark matter space also allows us to defend ourselves from those who would restrict our freedom. We did not choose to militarize our discoveries. The Council's hostile summons made that choice for us. Around the chamber, the Council members exchanged worried glances. Each of them was calculating the same impossible equation. How do you fight an enemy that can appear anywhere without warning? How do you defend against weapons that fire from dimensions you cannot detect? How do you maintain authority when your opponent has transcended the physics you understand? The council requires time to consider these revelations, Zexthal announced finally. Of course, Sarah replied. But while you consider, remember that 47 ships are watching and waiting. We came here hoping for a peaceful resolution. To our differences, we still hope for that outcome. She paused, letting her words sink in. But hope is not the same as expectation. Humanity has prepared for many possible futures. We suggest the council choose wisely. As the session was called to recess, Sarah and Marcus remained standing in the center of the chamber while chaos erupted around them. Representatives shouted questions, demanded explanations, and argued among themselves about what humanity's revelations meant for the future of galactic civilization. Above them all, invisible but present, the HSS Revenant maintained its position. The demonstration was over, but the real test was just beginning. The galaxy would never be the same. The emergency session of the Galactic Council lasted only 30 minutes. But those 30 minutes changed everything. High Crystal Arch Zexthal called the session to order with his crystal form blazing angry red light. Around the chamber, the 12 council members had gathered in urgent discussion after witnessing humanity's demonstration of dark matter technology. The observers had been asked to leave, but many refused. Word was already spreading across Nexus Prime that something extraordinary was happening in the council chamber. This session will come to order, Zexthal announced. We are here to address the human threat to galactic security. Admiral Sarah Chun remained standing in the center of the chamber, her expression calm despite the hostile atmosphere around her. Dr. Marcus Webb had returned to his seat, but kept one hand on his dimensional device. Both humans knew they were moments away from either triumph or disaster. There is no threat, Sarah said clearly. There is only change. The galaxy has evolved beyond the Council's ability to control it through old methods. Commander Thrax slammed his massive fist on his platform. You bring invisible warships into our territory and call it evolution? You threaten the peace that has lasted for thousands of years. The peace you speak of was built on fear, Sarah replied. Fear of Council retaliation. Fear of economic sanctions. Fear of military conquest. Is that really the foundation you want for galactic civilization? Sub-Queen Valandra's insect features twitched with rage. How dare you question our authority? The Council has brought stability to 1,000 worlds. We have prevented wars, mediated disputes, and protected the innocent from aggressors like yourselves. And we respect those achievements, Marcus said, standing up beside Sarah. But the methods that worked for the past 10,000 years will not work for the next 10,000. The universe is bigger than any one species or alliance can control. Architect, Prime 7 spoke in its cold mechanical voice. You claim peaceful intentions, yet you surround us with weapons we cannot detect or defend against. How is this different from conquest? Because we are asking for cooperation instead of demanding surrender, Sarah answered. We want to work with the Council, not replace it. But that cooperation must be between equals, not between masters and servants. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Several council members shouted that humanity was too young and inexperienced to be considered equal partners. Others demanded that the dark matter technology be shared with all species or destroyed completely. A few called for immediate military action against human territories. Through it all, Zexthal remained silent, his crystal form shifting through different colors as he processed the impossible situation. He had ruled the Council for over 2,000 years. He had seen species rise and fall, watched civilizations bloom and fade. But he had never faced anything like this. Activate the defensive shields, Minister Corvette said suddenly. If the humans want to threaten us, let them try to penetrate the most powerful barriers ever built. Alarms sounded throughout the chamber as the legendary shields of Nexus Prime came online. Layer after layer of energy barriers surrounded the Council. Complex, each one capable of stopping planet-killing weapons. The shields had never been breached in the entire history of the Council. They represented the ultimate expression of defensive technology. Sarah watched the shield activation with mild interest. Minister Corvette, are you planning to keep us trapped in here, or are you hoping to keep our ships out? Both, Corvette replied grimly. Your ships may be invisible, but they cannot pass through our shields while remaining undetected. Either they stay hidden and powerless, or they reveal themselves and face our defenses. An interesting theory, Sarah said. She raised her hand slightly, making a subtle gesture that looked like she was simply adjusting her uniform. What happened? Nex defied everything the Council thought they knew about physics. The air in the center of the chamber began to shimmer and bend. Reality itself seemed to twist as something massive forced its way from dark matter space into normal space. But this time, it was not just a small section of hull. This time, it was an entire starship. The HSS Revenant materialized inside the Council chamber like a ghost becoming solid. The ship was enormous, over a kilometer long, and it appeared directly above the assembled Council members. Its dark hull absorbed all light, making it look like a piece of empty space cut into the shape of a vessel. Panic erupted throughout the chamber. Council security forces rushed toward the humans, but their weapons passed harmlessly through Sarah and Marcus as both activated personal phasing devices. Emergency broadcasts filled the air as Nexus Prime's military scrambled to respond to an attack that should have been impossible. Your shields are impressive, Sarah said, her voice somehow carrying clearly over the chaos. Unfortunately, they only work in normal space. Dark matter ships exist partially outside your dimension. We can phase through your barriers the same way we phase through solid matter. The Revenant hung motionless above the chamber, its weapon ports clearly visible along its hull. Every Council member could see the exotic matter cannons that could tear apart entire continents. Every observer understood that humanity could have destroyed them all at any moment, but the weapons remained silent. This is your demonstration of peaceful intentions? Zexthel demanded, his crystal form now blazing with terror and rage. This is our demonstration of capability, Sarah corrected. If we wanted you dead, you would already be dead. If we wanted to conquer the Council, we would have done it years ago when we first deployed our fleet. Commander Thrak was shouting orders into his communicator, trying to coordinate a military response. All Council fleets converge on Nexus Prime. Code Emergency Alpha, the station is under attack. Commander, Sarah said patiently, your fleets cannot help you here. Would you like to know why? She made another gesture, and suddenly the chamber's main display screen activated. It showed a tactical view of the space around Nexus Prime, with dozens of Council warships rushing toward the ringworld. But scattered among them were new contacts, dark matter signatures that had not been there moments before. 46 additional ships just became partially visible to your sensors, Sarah explained. Each one is positioned next to one of your approaching vessels. Each one could destroy your ship before your crews even knew they were under attack. The display showed the impossible truth. Humanity's invisible fleet had surrounded the entire Council military response. Every ship racing to defend Nexus Prime had a dark matter warship shadowing it, ready to strike. You have been outmaneuvered. Completely, Marcus added. Your military doctrine is based on controlling space through superior firepower and defensive positions. But that only works when you can see your enemies coming. Architect Prime 7 calculated rapidly. The energy requirements for maintaining 47 ships in dimensional phase would be enormous. Your civilization should not possess such resources. You underestimate human efficiency, Sarah replied. When necessity drives innovation, we find ways to do the impossible. Dark matter is the most abundant substance in the universe. We simply learned to harvest what was already there. The implications hit the Council like physical blows. Not only had humanity developed dimensional technology, they had done it on a scale that suggested vast industrial capability. The rapid expansion of human colonies suddenly made sense. If they could build ships that existed partially outside normal space, they could also build factories, mining operations, and entire cities that remained hidden from Council observation. How long? Lumina asked, her energy form flickering with defeat. "How long have you been watching us?" "Our first dark matter probe reached Council Space 8 years ago," Sarah admitted. "We have been observing your activities, learning your capabilities, and preparing for this moment ever since. We know the locations of your military bases, the strength of your fleets, and the weaknesses in your defenses." "This is espionage on an unprecedented scale," Sub-Queen Valandra hissed. "This is survival," Sarah countered. "We knew that eventually the Council would notice our expansion and demand explanations. We prepared accordingly. The only question was whether this meeting would end in cooperation or conflict." Zexel's crystal form had faded to a dull gray color. "What you are describing is the complete obsolescence of conventional military power. If any species can develop this technology, wars will become impossible to fight or predict. Only if you continue thinking in terms of conventional warfare," Marcus said. "Dark matter technology opens up possibilities beyond simple military applications. We could share this knowledge with the galaxy. We could work together to explore dimensions that none of us fully understand yet." "And why would you do that?" Minister Korvat asked suspiciously. "You have achieved ultimate military superiority. Why offer to give it away?" Sarah smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "Because ultimate military superiority is meaningless if you are the only one who has it. We did not develop this technology to conquer the galaxy. We developed it to ensure that humanity could never be conquered by anyone else." She gestured toward the massive ship hanging above them. "The Revenant and her sister ships represent security, not aggression. As long as humanity's freedom is respected, they will remain peaceful explorers and guardians. But if anyone threatens our independence or tries to control our development, they will become the instruments of our defense." The chamber fell silent as every council member absorbed the full meaning of humanity's position. They were not facing conquerors who wanted to rule the galaxy. They were facing a species that had transcended the normal rules of power and control. Humanity could not be threatened, intimidated, or forced to submit. They could only be negotiated with as equals. "The Council requires time to discuss these revelations," Zexel said finally. "Of course," Sarah agreed. "But while you discuss, remember that every moment of delay is another moment when our ships remain in position around your fleets. Your personnel are undoubtedly frightened and confused. The longer this standoff continues, the more likely someone will make a mistake that leads to unnecessary violence." She paused, letting the warning sink in. "We suggest a recess of no more than 6 hours. When the Council reconvenes, we hope you will be ready to discuss the future rather than clinging to the past." The Revenant began to fade back into dark matter space, becoming translucent and then invisible. But everyone in the chamber knew it was still there, still watching, still ready to demonstrate humanity's power if cooperation proved impossible. As the council members filed out for their emergency discussions, Sarah and Marcus remained in the center of the chamber. They were no longer prisoners waiting for judgment. They were negotiators representing a power that could no longer be ignored or controlled. The demonstration was complete. The old galaxy was ending and the new one was about to begin. The 6 hours felt like 6 years. Throughout Nexus Prime, emergency meetings continued without pause. In the highest towers of the Ringworld, the 12 council species debated humanity's ultimatum with growing desperation. In military command centers, admirals stared at tactical displays showing their fleets helplessly surrounded by invisible enemies. In research facilities, scientists tried to understand technology that seemed to break every law of physics they knew. Admiral Sarah Chun and Dr. Marcus Webb waited in their assigned quarters, knowing that 47 dark matter warships maintained their positions throughout council space. The humans had played their hand completely. Now they could only wait to see how the galaxy would respond. In the council's emergency chambers, High Crystal Arch Zexthal faced the most difficult decision of his 2,000-year reign. Around him, the other council leaders argued with the desperation of beings who had just discovered their entire worldview was obsolete. "We must attack immediately," Commander Thrak insisted, his massive form pacing the chamber like a caged predator. Every moment we delay gives the humans more time to position additional ships. Strike now while we still know where some of them are. Strike with what? Demanded Sub-Queen Valandra. Our weapons cannot target enemies we cannot see. Our shields cannot stop attacks from dark matter space. Any military action would be suicide for our forces. Architect Prime 7 projected holographic calculations into the center of the chamber. Analysis complete. Human dark matter technology represents a paradigm shift equivalent to the discovery of faster-than-light travel. Traditional military doctrine is no longer applicable. Then what do you suggest? Lumina asked, her energy form flickering with anxiety. That we simply surrender our authority to these newcomers? I suggest we accept reality, replied Minister Korvac quietly. The humans have achieved something beyond our comprehension. We can either adapt to this new situation or be swept aside by it. The debate continued, but Zexthal already knew what the outcome would be. In his long life, he had seen many civilizations face moments like this. Species that clung to old ways of thinking were destroyed by those who embraced change. The council could either evolve or become extinct. The mathematics were simple, even if they were terrifying. Humanity possessed technology that made conventional military power meaningless. They could strike any target without warning, defend any position without vulnerability, and move through space without detection. More importantly, they had demonstrated these capabilities while maintaining perfect discipline and restraint. A less mature species might have used such overwhelming advantage to conquer the galaxy immediately. The fact that humanity had revealed their power through negotiation rather than destruction suggested they truly wanted cooperation instead of domination, but cooperation would require the Council to abandon 10,000 years of supremacy. The humans claim they want to work with us, Zexthal said finally, interrupting the endless arguments. Perhaps we should discover what that actually means. You cannot be serious, Commander Thrak growled. They have made us prisoners in our own territory. They threaten us with invisible weapons. This is not cooperation. This is conquest by intimidation. No, Zexthal replied, his crystal form pulsing with reluctant understanding. Conquest would have been faster and simpler. They could have destroyed our fleets years ago. They could have assassinated council leadership at any time. They could have conquered our worlds without us even knowing we were under attack. He gestured toward the chamber's main display, which still showed the positions of human ships surrounding council forces. Instead, they revealed themselves through diplomacy. They demonstrated their power without using it destructively. They offered partnership rather than demanding surrender. These are not the actions of conquerors. Then what are they? Asked Lumina. They are the actions of a species that has transcended our understanding of power itself, Zexthal answered. The humans have achieved something we thought impossible. Now they are offering to share the galaxy with us instead of taking it for themselves. Around the chamber, the council members fell silent as they absorbed this perspective. Everything they had believed about galactic politics had been based on the assumption that superior technology led inevitably to dominance. But humanity had achieved ultimate technological superiority and chosen restraint instead of conquest. It was a concept that challenged everything the Council thought they knew about how advanced civilizations behaved. What are you proposing? Sub-Queen Valandra asked carefully. I am proposing that we return to the Council chamber and negotiate a new relationship with humanity, Zexthal replied. One based on the reality of their capabilities rather than our memories of their limitations. The debate that followed was fierce but brief. Some council members still wanted to fight, despite the obvious futility of military action. Others proposed attempting to steal human technology through espionage or bribery. A few even suggested trying to evacuate council space entirely and rebuilding their civilization beyond human reach. In the end, pragmatism won. The council would negotiate because they had no other choice. When the 6 hours ended, the council chamber filled once again, but this time, the atmosphere was completely different. The arrogance and condescension that had marked the original session were gone. Replaced by wary respect and barely controlled fear, Sarah and Marcus returned to their positions in the center of the chamber, but they were no longer supplicants begging for understanding. They were representatives of a power that had fundamentally altered the balance of galactic civilization. The Council recognizes the human delegation, Zexthel announced. His crystal form had returned to its normal blue-white color, but the patterns within showed deep uncertainty. We are prepared to discuss the future of human-council relations. Excellent, Sarah replied. Dr. Webb has prepared a comprehensive presentation on the implications of dark matter technology. We believe it will help clarify the situation for everyone. Marcus activated his equipment, and suddenly the chamber filled with three-dimensional displays showing the structure of normal space and dark matter space. The visualizations were beautiful and terrifying, revealing dimensions of reality that no other species had ever imagined. Dark matter makes up approximately 85% of all matter in the universe, Marcus began. For billions of years, it has been invisible and intangible to conventional physics. But it has always been there, surrounding us, interpenetrating normal space in ways we are only beginning to understand. The displays showed how human ships could exist in both dimensions simultaneously, phasing between realities as needed. They demonstrated how dark matter weapons could strike targets from directions that did not exist in normal space. They revealed manufacturing facilities that existed partially outside normal physics, explaining how humanity had built such a massive fleet without detection. This technology represents more than military advancement, Marcus continued. It opens up entirely new possibilities for exploration, resource extraction, and even colonization. There are entire regions of dark matter space that could support civilizations larger than anything we have built in normal space. Council members leaned forward, suddenly understanding that humanity was not just offering military partnership. They were offering access to an entirely new frontier of existence. But the knowledge required to develop dark matter manipulation is extremely dangerous, Sarah added. Mistakes in dimensional engineering can tear holes in space-time itself. Uncontrolled experiments can create gravitational anomalies that destroy entire star systems. This technology must be shared carefully and responsibly. Are you willing to share it at all? Asked Minister Corvett. Under the right circumstances, yes, Sarah replied. But sharing will require trust, cooperation, and a fundamental change in how galactic civilization operates. The old system of dominance and submission cannot survive in an era of dimensional technology. She gestured toward the displays showing dark matter space. Every species that learns to manipulate dark matter will become effectively undefeatable. By conventional means, wars between such civilizations would be catastrophic beyond imagination. The only way forward is through cooperation and mutual respect. Zexthel processed this information carefully. You are proposing a complete restructuring of galactic government. We are proposing evolution, Marcus corrected. The Council has served the galaxy well for 10,000 years. But the challenges of the next 10,000 years will require new approaches. Species with dimensional technology cannot be governed by species without it. But species without dimensional technology cannot be protected from those who have it. What specifically do you want from us? Commander Thrak asked bluntly. Sarah smiled. First, recognition that humanity's expansion and development activities are sovereign matters that require no council approval. Second, establishment of new trade agreements that treat humans as equal partners rather than junior members. Third, creation of a joint research initiative to explore the implications of dimensional technology safely. And if we agree to these terms, Lumina asked, then humanity will share dark matter manipulation technology with all council species. Over a carefully planned timeline, Sarah replied. We will work together to establish new protocols for dimensional exploration. We will help defend the galaxy against any external threats that might emerge from dark matter space. And if we refuse? Sub-Queen Valandra had to ask. Sarah's expression hardened slightly. Then humanity will pursue its own path independently. We will continue to expand and develop as we see fit. We will protect our interests using whatever means necessary. And the galaxy will slowly divide into those who understand the new reality and those who do not. The threat was clear but not cruel. Humanity would not conquer the Council, but they would also not be constrained by Council authority. The old system would simply become irrelevant as human technology opened up possibilities beyond Council reach. The Council requires time to consider these proposals, Zexthel said. Of course, Sarah agreed. But this time, we suggest the discussion focus on implementation rather than resistance. The age of human subservience is over. The question now is whether the age of cooperation will begin. As the session ended, representatives from across the galaxy filed out of the chamber in thoughtful silence. Everything had changed. The species that had ruled space for millennia now faced a choice between evolution and extinction. But in the quiet conversations that followed, a consensus began to emerge. Humanity had demonstrated both incredible power and remarkable restraint. They had offered partnership instead of demanding submission. They had revealed technology that could benefit everyone instead of hoarding it for themselves. Most importantly, they had shown that advanced civilizations could choose cooperation over conquest. 3 days later, the Galactic Council announced its decision. New agreements would be negotiated with humanity as equal partners. Joint research initiatives would be established to explore dimensional technology safely. Trade relationships would be restructured to reflect the new balance of power. The age of human ascendancy had begun, but it would be an age of cooperation rather than domination. The galaxy had avoided war by choosing wisdom over pride. And in the dark spaces between dimensions, 47 human warships quietly withdrew to their home systems, their mission complete. They had changed the galaxy forever without firing a single shot. The future belonged to those brave enough to reach into the unknown and patient enough to share what they found there. Humanity had proven they possessed both qualities. Now the rest of the galaxy would learn to follow their example. The stars themselves seemed brighter in the new age that was beginning.
The massive chamber stretched out like a small city. Thousands of seats rose in perfect circles, each one filled with a different alien species. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime, turning countless languages into something everyone could understand. At the center of it all stood a single human woman. Ambassador Sarah Chen felt very small in that moment. Her black diplomatic uniform looked plain next to the colorful robes and exotic clothing of the other delegates. She had been standing there for 3 hours while species after species gave their reasons why humanity should be cast out from galactic society. The Altarians spoke first. Their leader, a tall blue creature with 4 arms, gestured dramatically as he spoke. Humans are too violent, he said. They solve problems with force instead of talking. Just look at their history. Wars, conflicts, destruction everywhere they go. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Sarah wanted to argue, but the rules were clear. Today was for accusations only. Tomorrow, she would have her chance to defend her species. Next came the Centauri delegation. Their representative looked like a giant butterfly with golden wings. Humans break the ancient ways, she said in a voice like singing wind. For 10,000 years, we have done things the same way. Trade routes established, territories marked, rules followed. Then humans arrive and want to change everything. They ask too many questions. They challenge our methods. More voices joined in agreement. Sarah noticed some species nodding their strange heads or making whatever gestures meant yes in their cultures. The Vegan Empire's speaker stood up. He was a massive reptile with scales that changed color as he talked. Humans are unpredictable, he hissed. We cannot trust a species that acts on emotion instead of logic. They make deals and then want to change them. They promise one thing and do another. This makes them dangerous partners. Hour after hour, the complaints continued. Humans were too curious, asking about things that should be left alone. Humans were too innovative, inventing new technologies that disrupted established industries. Humans were too democratic, letting common people have opinions about important matters. Humans were too individualistic, refusing to follow proper hierarchy and chain of command. Sarah listened to every word, taking careful notes on her tablet. Some of the complaints were fair. Humans did ask a lot of questions. They did challenge old ways of doing things. But was that really such a terrible crime? The worst accusations came from the Andromedans. Their delegate was a creature that looked like living crystal, speaking through vibrations that the translators struggled to convert. Humans spread chaos wherever they go, the crystal being said. Look at Kepler Station. For centuries it was a peaceful trading post. Then humans arrived with their ideas about workers' rights and fair wages. Now there are protests and strikes. Order has collapsed. And what about the Vega colonies? Added another voice. Humans convinced 3 different species to work together on joint projects. This violated established territorial agreements that had kept peace for millennia. Sarah felt her anger growing, but she kept her face calm. These aliens were describing human achievements as if they were crimes. Kepler Station now had better working conditions and happier workers. The Vega colonies had become the most prosperous sector in that region precisely because different species were sharing knowledge and resources. As the day wore on, a pattern became clear. The accusations weren't really about violence or chaos. They were about change. The galaxy's older species had built a comfortable system where everyone knew their place. Trade flowed through established channels. Technology advanced at a predictable pace. Conflicts were rare because no one challenged the status quo. Then humans arrived and upset everything. They asked why certain species were excluded from trade councils. They wondered why some technologies were restricted to specific groups. They suggested new ways of doing things that might work better than ancient traditions. The final speaker was Archon Zelthar of the Galactic Council itself. He was one of the Eternals, a species so old that they claimed to have been present when the first galactic government was formed. His body was mostly energy contained in a glowing suit, and when he spoke, reality itself seemed to listen. Honored delegates, Zelthar began. We have heard many concerns about the human species, but let us be clear about what we are really discussing. This is not about any single action or policy. This is about fundamental compatibility. The chamber fell, silent. Even the constant hum of translation devices seemed quieter. Humans represent a philosophy that cannot coexist with galactic civilization, Zelthar continued. They believe in constant change, endless questioning, and individual freedom above collective stability. These are not evil qualities, but they are incompatible with a galaxy that values order, tradition, and harmony. Sarah felt a chill run through her. This wasn't a trial, it was a divorce proceeding. We have tried to integrate humans into our society for 50 years, Zelthar said. The results speak for themselves. Every human colony becomes a center of unrest. Every human trading post spawns new ideas that disrupt established markets. Every human diplomat asks questions that challenge agreements older than their entire species. The Archon's glow intensified. We do not hate humans. We simply recognize that our ways of life are fundamentally incompatible. It is better for all concerned if we separate peacefully now, before this incompatibility leads to larger conflicts. When Zelthar finished speaking, the chamber erupted in discussion. Representatives turned to their neighbors, speaking in dozens of different languages. Sarah caught fragments through her translator. Finally, necessary step. Should have done this years ago. The voting process took another 2 hours. Each species was called by name, and their representatives stood to announce their decision. Sarah watched the tally board with growing despair, as red lights outnumbered blue ones by an overwhelming margin. In the end, 847 species voted to exile humanity from galactic civilization. Only 23 voted against the measure, mostly younger species that humans had helped in recent years. Even some species that had worked closely with humans voted for exile, their representatives looking apologetic but determined. When the voting ended, Archon Zelthar rose one final time. "The Galactic Council has spoken," he announced. "Effective immediately, all formal relationships with Earth and its colonies are severed. Humanity has 30 solar cycles to withdraw all personnel, equipment, and vessels from territories beyond the Sol system. After that time, any human presence outside their home system will be considered an act of aggression." Sarah stood to address the chamber one last time. Her voice was steady, but she could feel tears threatening. "Honored delegates," she said, "I want you to know that humanity accepts this decision. We are disappointed, but we understand. We came to the galaxy hoping to find friends and partners. Instead, we found a civilization that values stability above justice, tradition above progress, and conformity above freedom." Some delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "But we hold no grudge," Sarah continued. "Every species has the right to choose its own path. If you believe the galaxy is better without us, then perhaps you are right. We will return to our home system and find our own way forward." She paused, looking around the vast chamber one last time. "We wish you well, and we hope that someday, when you are ready for the changes that growth requires, you will remember that humanity offered friendship to all who wanted it." With that, Sarah Chen gathered her notes, straightened her uniform, and walked out of the Galactic Council chamber. Behind her, 8 centuries of alien species watched in silence as the youngest member of galactic civilization accepted exile. With dignity and grace, the decision was made. Humanity was alone again, but in the depths of space, traveling back toward the small blue planet that had given birth to an ambitious species, Sarah Chen allowed herself a small smile. The aliens had made one crucial mistake in their calculations. They assumed that exile would weaken humanity. They forgot that humans had spent their entire existence being told what they couldn't do, where they couldn't go, and what they couldn't achieve. Every single time, humans had proved the doubters wrong. The galaxy would soon learn what humanity was capable of when they stopped trying to fit in and started being themselves. Captain Marcus Webb stood on the bridge of the cargo hauler New Horizon and looked at the message that had just arrived. Like every other human in the galaxy, he had been waiting for Earth's response to the exile vote. The official statement was shorter than he expected. To all human citizens beyond the Sol system, the message read, "The Galactic Council has voted to end all relationships with humanity. We accept their decision with respect and understanding. All humans are hereby ordered to return to the Sol system within 30 days. Pack everything. Take everything. Leave nothing behind. We are going home." It was signed by the United Earth government, but Marcus recognized the writing style. President Martinez had written this personally. "Sir?" his first officer asked. "What are your orders?" Marcus looked around. The bridge. His crew of 12 had been running cargo between human and alien worlds for 5 years. They had made good money and built solid relationships with dozens of species. Now it was all ending. "Send word to all human ships in this sector," Marcus said. "We're going home." Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on hundreds of human vessels. The message was clear: no arguments, no protests, no attempts to change the Council's mind. Humanity was leaving. On Kepler Station, Chief Administrator Lisa Park received the recall order while sitting in her office overlooking the massive trade hub. Through her window, she could see ships from 20 different species loading and unloading cargo. Human workers moved alongside alien crews, operating the advanced loading systems that had increased the station's efficiency by 40% over the past 3 years. Lisa called her department heads together for an emergency meeting. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said to the mixed group of humans and aliens, "I've just received orders from Earth. All human personnel are being recalled immediately." The room erupted in questions. Yethvar, her Altarian security chief, stood up on his 4 legs. "Administrator Park, this cannot be correct. The station cannot function without human oversight. Our productivity will fall to previous levels." "That's not our problem anymore," Lisa replied sadly. "Earth's orders are clear. We pack up and leave." "But what about our contracts?" asked Dr. Moira Singh, the human head of the medical bay. We have patients who depend on human-developed treatments. Some of them will die without our care. Lisa felt her heart breaking, but orders were orders. We'll transfer all medical data to the remaining staff before we go. That's all we can do. Similar conversations happened across the galaxy. On Vega Prime's orbital research station, human scientists prepared to abandon experiments that had taken years to set up. On the mining worlds of Tau Ceti, human engineers shut down operations that supplied rare elements to half the galaxy. On the diplomatic station at Alpha Centauri, human translators and negotiators packed up offices where they had helped resolve conflicts between species who couldn't communicate directly. The evacuation began immediately. Human transport ships that had been carrying cargo suddenly found themselves converted to passenger vessels. Private yachts, military vessels, corporate transports, and even converted cargo haulers joined the massive fleet heading home. But something strange started happening. The humans weren't just taking their people, they were taking everything else too. On Kepler Station, Lisa Park supervised the removal of every piece of human-built equipment. The advanced cargo handling systems came apart piece by piece. The improved life support systems were carefully disconnected. Even the software that ran the station's computer network was purged and replaced with older versions. "You can't take that," Yethvar protested, as human workers began dismantling the main computer core. "That system belongs to the station." "Actually, it doesn't," Lisa said, consulting her tablet. "According to the original installation contracts, all human-built systems remain the property of human corporations unless specifically sold to the station owners. Since the Galactic Council has severed all business relationships with humanity, those contracts are void. We're taking our property home." Similar scenes played out everywhere humans had worked. Research data was encrypted and withdrawn. Manufacturing equipment was disassembled and loaded onto ships. Even improvements to alien-built systems were carefully removed, leaving behind older, less efficient versions. On the mining world of Kepler 442b, the evacuation created an immediate crisis. The human-designed extraction systems had increased mineral output by 300% compared to traditional methods. When the humans packed up their equipment and left, the alien crews found themselves unable to operate the old systems effectively. "Wait," pleaded Corthanus, the Centauri overseer. "At least leave us the technical manuals. Show us how to operate the equipment you're leaving behind." Engineer Sarah Rodriguez shook her head. "We're not leaving any equipment behind, and all technical data belongs to human corporations. Sorry, but you voted us out. That means no more access to human technology." The economic impact began almost immediately. Trade routes that had depended on human logistics expertise started experiencing delays. Manufacturing processes that used human innovations slowed to a crawl. Medical treatments developed by human doctors became unavailable as the last human researchers packed up their labs. On the diplomatic station, the situation was even more complex. Ambassador Chen had been replaced by a series of human diplomats who were now tasked with managing the withdrawal. They found themselves dealing with desperate pleas from species who were just beginning to understand what they were losing. "Surely we can work out some kind of arrangement," suggested the Andromedan representative. "Perhaps a limited trade agreement? Cultural exchange programs?" "I'm sorry," replied Ambassador Torres, Sarah Chen's replacement. "The council vote was very clear. No formal relationships of any kind. You made your choice." "But what about the peace treaty between the Rigelians and the Altarians? Your people helped negotiate that agreement." "The treaty will remain in effect," Torres said, "but any future disputes will need to be resolved without human mediation." The Andromedan's crystalline form flickered with what humans had learned was anxiety. "But our species can barely communicate directly. Humans were the only translators who understood both our linguistic patterns and their emotional contexts." Torres felt sympathy for the alien, but his orders were clear. "You'll have to find another solution." As the evacuation continued, reports began reaching Earth about the wider consequences. Species that had relied on human-mediated trade were finding it difficult to work with each other directly. Research projects that had depended on human innovation were grinding to a halt. Even simple things like station maintenance were becoming problems as human-trained workers took their knowledge home. President Martinez read each report carefully. His advisors were divided about humanity's response to the exile. "We should offer to help with the transition," suggested Secretary of State Williams. "Show them we're the reasonable ones in this situation." "Absolutely not," countered Defense Secretary Harrison. "They kicked us out. They can deal with the consequences." Martinez made his decision based on a simple principle: respect. The Galactic Council made their choice based on what they thought was best for their civilization. We need to respect that choice completely. No half measures, no special deals, no gradual withdrawal. We leave cleanly and completely. The exodus took exactly 28 days. The largest logistical operation in human history moved over 50 million people and their equipment across hundreds of light years. Not a single human was left behind. Not a single piece of human technology remained in alien hands. As the last human ships crossed into the Sol system, they were met by a sight that took their breath away. Earth's orbital space had been transformed. Massive construction projects stretched from Mercury's orbit to beyond Jupiter. New space stations, shipyards, and manufacturing facilities were already under construction. Captain Webb docked his ship at one of the new stations and was greeted by Admiral Sarah Chen, who had been promoted after her service as ambassador. "Welcome home, Captain," she said. "I hope you brought more than just passengers." Webb smiled. "We brought detailed scans of every system we visited, complete technical specifications of all alien technologies we worked with, and comprehensive economic data on galactic trade patterns." "Good," Chen replied, "because we have work to do." As Webb looked around the bustling station, he saw humans working alongside beings he didn't recognize. "Admiral, who are those aliens?" Chen's smile widened. "Those aren't aliens, Captain. They're our new neighbors. It turns out we're not the only species the galaxy decided to exclude." 5 years had passed since the last human ship crossed into Sol system space. In the grand chambers of the Galactic Council, Archon Zelter reviewed the quarterly reports with growing unease. What he saw in those documents was not what he had expected. The first sign of trouble had appeared just months after the human exodus. Trade efficiency across the galaxy had dropped by 15%. The number seemed small, but when applied to an economy spanning thousands of worlds and hundreds of species, 15% meant trillions of credits in lost productivity. "Explain this to me," Zeltar said to his economic advisor, a centauri named Veltar, whose golden wings fluttered nervously. "The humans had optimized many of our trade routes," Veltar explained. "They used mathematical models we didn't fully understand to predict cargo flows and schedule shipments. Without their systems, we've returned to older, less efficient methods." Zeltar's energy form pulsed with irritation. "Surely other species can learn these methods." "We've tried, Archon, but human mathematics is different. They think in patterns that don't come naturally to most galactic species. Their computers used algorithms that our programmers find difficult to replicate." The economic problems were just the beginning. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy describing similar issues. Kepler Station, once the busiest trade hub in the Outer Rim, had lost 40% of its throughput. The Altarian mining operations in the Tau Ceti system had been forced to shut down 3 major extraction sites when they couldn't maintain the human-built equipment. Even worse were the medical reports. Dr. Yenthara of the Andromedan Crystal Collective presented the most disturbing findings to the Council. "Honored Archon," the crystal being vibrated, "we are facing a health crisis. 17 different plague outbreaks have occurred in sectors where humans previously provided medical support. The death toll now exceeds 2 million beings." Zelthar's glow dimmed. "Surely our own medical knowledge is sufficient?" "For traditional diseases, yes. But humans had developed treatments for conditions that had plagued our species for centuries. The Rigelian bone-wasting disease, Altarian scale rot, even the Centauri wing fungus. All of these were being successfully treated with human-developed medicines. Now those treatments are no longer available. What about the medical data they left behind? Dr. Yenthara's crystals dimmed to show sadness. The data was encrypted with human security protocols. We cannot decode it. And even if we could, the manufacturing processes for these medicines require technology that humans took with them. Similar reports came from every sector of galactic society. The Vega research stations had gone dark when their human-maintained equipment failed. 3 different wars had broken out in sectors where human diplomats had been maintaining fragile peace agreements. Pirates had become bolder in regions where human patrol ships were no longer operating. But perhaps the most disturbing development was the complete silence from Sol system itself. What do our long-range sensors tell us about human activities? Zelthar asked his intelligence chief, a reptilian vegan named Suskorth. That is the problem, Archon. We detect nothing. Nothing. No communication signals leaving the system. No ship movements beyond the outer planets. No response to any of our attempts at contact. It's as if the entire human species has simply vanished. This was not entirely true, but it was what the galactic sensors could detect. Humanity had indeed gone quiet, but they were far from inactive. In the space between Jupiter and Saturn, construction projects on a scale never before seen in galactic history were transforming the Sol system. Admiral Chen stood on the command deck of the massive space station that now served as humanity's primary shipyard. Through the observation windows, she could see dozens of vessels under construction, but these weren't the ships that galactic civilization would recognize. Status report, she requested from her chief engineer, a woman named Dr. Patricia Nakamura. We're ahead of schedule on all projects, Nakamura replied. The new FTL communication system is operational. We can now communicate instantly across light years without using the galactic communication network. The manufacturing facilities are producing materials at rates that exceed our best Earth-based factories, and the first of our new exploration vessels will be ready for launch within the month. Chen nodded approvingly. What about our new friends? Nakamura's smile widened. The Wanderers are amazing engineers. Their biotechnology integrates perfectly with our systems. The Outcast's mining expertise has given us access to resources we never knew existed, and the Exile's knowledge of unexplored regions is invaluable. The 3 species that had joined humanity in their isolation were each remarkable in their own way. The Wanderers were a nomadic species that had been driven from their home world centuries ago for refusing to accept static territorial boundaries. The Outcasts were master miners and builders who had been expelled from galactic society for questioning the environmental impact of traditional extraction methods. The Exiles were explorers who had been banished for venturing into forbidden regions of space. Together, these 4 species had formed something unprecedented in galactic history. A truly cooperative alliance based on mutual respect and shared innovation, rather than ancient traditions and established hierarchies. Have we heard anything from the galaxy? Chen asked. Multiple attempts at communication, Nakamura replied. They seem confused by our lack of response. Some species are requesting emergency aid for medical crises. Others want to negotiate limited trade agreements. A few are even hinting that they might reconsider the exile decision. And our response? Complete silence, as ordered. Chen looked out at the construction work surrounding them. Humans and their new allies worked side by side on projects that would have been impossible under the old galactic system. New technologies were being developed at an unprecedented pace. Art, music, and literature flowed freely between the 4 species, creating cultural exchanges that enriched everyone involved. Meanwhile, the galaxy that had expelled them was slowly falling apart. The problems weren't limited to economics and medicine. Social unrest was spreading across multiple systems as younger species began questioning why they had voted to exile humanity. The Kepler station riots had started when workers demanded better conditions like the ones they had enjoyed under human management. Similar protests broke out on dozens of worlds. On Alteria Prime, 4 armed protesters carried signs written in the simple English they had learned from human traders. Bring back fairness and humans helped us were common messages. The Altarian government responded with traditional crowd control methods, but the protests continued, Even worse for galactic stability, some species began forming their own alliances outside the traditional council structure. Young Centauri diplomats started meeting secretly with progressive Rigelians to discuss alternative forms of government. Andromedan scientists shared research with vegan engineers, bypassing the usual bureaucratic channels. The galaxy's leadership watched these developments with growing alarm. The very social changes they had feared from human influence were happening anyway. But without human guidance to keep them peaceful and productive, Archon Zelthar called an emergency session of the Inner Council, the galaxy's most senior leaders. The situation is becoming untenable, he announced to the gathered representatives. Our economy is struggling, our medical systems are failing, and social unrest is spreading. Perhaps it is time to reconsider our relationship with humanity. The Altarian representative, General Kethmore, disagreed. We cannot show weakness now. If we reverse our decision, every species in the galaxy will think they can challenge our authority. But the practical consequences are severe, argued the Centauri delegate. My people are dying from diseases that humans could cure. Our trade networks are collapsing. Something must be done. The debate continued for hours, but reached no conclusion. The older species, particularly the Eternals like Zelthar, were reluctant to admit their mistake. The younger species were growing increasingly frustrated with their leader's stubbornness. Finally, Zelthar made a decision. We will send an official communication to Sol System. We will offer limited re-engagement on specific issues of mutual concern. The message was carefully crafted to appear generous while maintaining galactic dignity. It offered humanity a chance to provide medical aid in exchange for limited trading rights. It suggested cultural exchanges that might benefit both sides. It even hinted that full membership in galactic society might be possible again if humans proved they could integrate properly. The message was transmitted using the galaxy's most powerful communication array. It was sent on all frequencies that humans had previously used. It was repeated daily for a full month. The response from Sol System was the same as always. Absolute silence. What the galactic leaders didn't understand was that humanity no longer needed them. The species that had been exiled for being too disruptive, too innovative, and too independent had used those very qualities to build something better than what they had lost. In the depths of the Sol System, 4 species worked together on projects that would reshape their understanding of what civilization could become. They were developing technologies that would make galactic science look primitive. They were creating art that combined the best of multiple cultures. They were building ships that could go places the galaxy had never imagined, and they were preparing for the day when they would return to the stars, not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as the founders of something entirely new. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth, thinking they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had created a solution to problems they didn't even know they had. 10 years after the exile, the Sol System had become something that would have amazed the galaxy's greatest architects. Dr. Patricia Nakamura floated in her environmental suit outside the massive construction that now orbited between Mars and Jupiter. The structure was so large that it had its own gravitational field, pulling in asteroids and space debris to feed its ever-growing mass. Status report on the Genesis project. She spoke into her communication device. All systems operating at peak efficiency, came the reply from her Wanderer counterpart, a being called Flow Between Stars whose liquid form was contained in a specialized worksuit. The bio-neural networks are integrating perfectly with human computational systems. We should have full consciousness emergence within the next solar cycle. Nakamura smiled inside her helmet. The Genesis project was humanity's most ambitious undertaking, a living space station that could think, adapt, and grow on its own. It combined human engineering with Wanderer biotechnology, outcast mining techniques, and exile navigation systems. Nothing like it had ever existed in galactic history, but Genesis was just one of hundreds of projects transforming human space. Across the system, impossible things were becoming routine. On the moon of Europa, vast underwater cities housed millions of beings from all 4 allied species. The cities were grown rather than built, using Wanderer techniques that shaped living. coral into structures stronger than steel. Human families lived side by side with crystalline outcasts, gaseous wanderers, and the energy-based exiles in perfect harmony. In the asteroid belt, mining operations extracted not just minerals but exotic matter that existed in higher dimensions. Outcast miners, who had been expelled from galactic society for their unconventional methods, had taught humans to tap into resources that traditional galactic science claimed were impossible to harvest. Most remarkable of all were the ships being constructed in the orbital yards around Saturn. These vessels looked nothing like traditional galactic designs. They were organic in appearance, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift and adapt. They moved through space not by burning fuel, but by manipulating the fabric of reality. Itself, Admiral Chen, now promoted to Fleet Commander of the Terra Alliance, stood on the bridge of the flagship, New Dawn. The ship was a perfect example of what four species could accomplish when they truly worked together. Its hull was grown from Wanderer biometal, its engines were powered by outcast exotic matter generators, its navigation systems used exile space-folding technology, and its command structure was based on human organizational principles. Navigation, what's our current position? Chen asked her helm officer, an exile named Whisper in the Void, whose energy form flickered with contentment. We are currently in the Oort cloud, approximately 2 light-years from Sol. Whisper replied through the ship's translation system. Long-range sensors are detecting no galactic presence in this region. Chen nodded. The galaxy still believed that humanity was confined to the inner solar system. They had no idea that human ships could now travel distances that would have taken their vessels months to cover. Any word from our advanced scouts? Yes, Commander, replied her communications officer, a human named Lieutenant Park. Teams 7 through 12 have made contact with 3 new species in the galactic rim regions. All 3 are interested in joining our alliance. This was the most significant development in the Terra Alliance's history. Beyond the edges of known galactic space, they had discovered dozens of species that the Galactic Council had either ignored or actively avoided. Many of these species possessed knowledge and abilities that complemented the Alliance's existing strengths. The first of these new species were the Builders, insect-like creatures who could construct massive structures using only raw materials and their own biological secretions. The second were the Singers, energy beings who could manipulate matter through sound frequencies. The third were the Shapers, a collective consciousness that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each new species brought something unique to the Alliance. More importantly, each had been rejected by galactic civilization for reasons that the Terra Alliance found absurd. The Builders had been considered too primitive because they didn't use traditional metalworking techniques. The Singers had been deemed dangerous because their abilities couldn't be easily controlled or regulated. The Shapers had been ignored entirely because galactic science couldn't figure out how to communicate with a multidimensional consciousness. Prepare a full report for the Alliance Council, Chen ordered. I want detailed analysis of each new species' capabilities and how they might integrate with our existing projects. While the Terra Alliance expanded and evolved, the galaxy that had expelled them continued to decline. The problems that had begun shortly after the human exodus had grown worse with each passing year. On the Galactic Council station, Archon Zelthar reviewed the latest crisis reports with a sense of despair that was unusual for an Eternal. The economic situation had stabilized at a much lower level than before, but social problems were multiplying. The Alteri Prime riots have entered their 3rd month, reported his security chief. Government forces are unable to restore order. The protesters are demanding democratic reforms similar to what they observed on human-administered worlds. What about the Centauri situation? The Centauri Council of Elders has been dissolved. Younger Centauri have established what they call a People's Assembly and are refusing to recognize traditional authority structures. They claim to be following human political models. Zelthar's energy form dimmed with frustration. And the Andromedan Plague? Now affecting 7 systems. Without human medical knowledge, we estimate 40% mortality rates in affected populations. The irony was painful. The galaxy had expelled humanity for being too disruptive, but their absence had created far more disruption than their presence ever had. Worse, the social changes they had feared were happening anyway, but without human guidance to keep them constructive rather than destructive. Have we received any response to our communication attempts? Zelthar asked hopefully. None. Archon, Sol system remains completely silent. What the galactic leadership didn't know was that humanity could hear every message they sent. The Terra Alliance's communication technology was now so advanced that they could monitor galactic communications from anywhere in local space. They simply chose not to respond. In a conference room aboard the New Dawn, the Alliance Council was debating their next move. The council consisted of representatives from all allied species, with decisions made by consensus rather than authority. The galaxy is clearly suffering without us, said Dr. Sarah Rodriguez, now serving as Earth's representative. Perhaps it's time to offer assistance. Flow between stars rippled in disagreement. They chose their path. We should focus on our own development. But millions of beings are dying from diseases we could cure, argued Crystal Song Deep, the outcast representative. Do we not have moral obligations? Whisper in the Void flickered thoughtfully. The question is not whether we should help, but how. Do we return as the same species they expelled, or do we reveal what we have become? 15 years after the exile, the first Terra Alliance ship appeared in galactic space without warning. It materialized near the plague-stricken world of Alteri 7, not through any known form of faster-than-light travel, but by simply stepping out of what appeared to be folded space itself. The ship was unlike anything in the galactic database. It looked grown rather than built, with smooth curves that seemed to pulse with internal light. It was beautiful in a way that made traditional galactic vessels look crude and mechanical by comparison. On the bridge of the Alterian defense platform, Commander Yethkol stared at his sensors in confusion. "What is that thing?" he asked his crew. "Unknown design," replied his sensor officer. "It's not using any propulsion system we can identify. And the materials, the computer says the hull is impossible. It reads as both living tissue and advanced metal at the same time." "Any response to our hails?" "Yes, sir. They're asking permission to provide medical aid to the planet below." Yethkol hesitated. His people had been dying from the Regellian plague for months. Traditional galactic medicine had proven useless, but accepting help from an unknown vessel went against all protocols. "Sir," his communications officer said urgently, "they're transmitting medical data. The computer is analyzing it now. Commander, they have a cure for the plague. Not just a treatment, but a complete cure." The decision was easy after that. Within hours, small craft from the mysterious ship were landing at medical facilities across Alteri 7. The beings who emerged wore environmental suits that concealed their identity, but their actions spoke louder than words. The cure they provided didn't just stop the plague. It made the affected population immune to 17 other diseases that had plagued the Alterians for centuries. The medical procedures they demonstrated were so advanced that local doctors could barely understand them. Dr. Kethmara, the planet's chief medical officer, worked alongside the mysterious healers for 3 straight days. "Your techniques are incredible," she told the lead figure whose voice came through a universal translator. "I've never seen anything like this. What species are you?" "We are friends," came the reply. "That is all you need to know for now." Similar incidents began, occurring across the galaxy. Ships of impossible design appeared wherever there were crises. They provided aid without asking for anything in return, then disappeared as mysteriously as they had arrived. On Centauri Prime, massive construction vessels helped rebuild cities destroyed by civil unrest. The new buildings were more beautiful and efficient than anything the Centauri had ever created. On Vega Station, engineering teams repaired systems that had been failing for years, upgrading them with technology that seemed decades ahead of galactic standards. The pattern was always the same. Mysterious benefactors appeared, solved problems that galactic civilization couldn't handle, and vanished before anyone could identify them or demand explanations. In the Galactic Council chambers, The emergency sessions had become daily occurrences. Archon Zelthar reviewed report after report of these interventions with growing amazement and concern. "They've now appeared in 47 different systems," announced his intelligence chief. "Every appearance follows the same pattern. They arrive without warning, provide exactly the help that's needed, and disappear before we can establish meaningful contact." "Any clues to their identity?" Zelthar asked. "The linguistic patterns in their communications suggest familiarity with multiple galactic languages, but their technology is completely unknown. Some of our scientists think they might be from outside our galaxy entirely." Zelthar pondered this possibility. Extragalactic contact had been theoretical for so long that most species had stopped considering it seriously. But what other explanation could there be for such advanced capabilities? "What do they want?" he wondered aloud. "That's the strange part, Archon. They don't seem to want anything. They provide aid and disappear. No trade negotiations, no territorial claims, no demands for recognition or payment." This was perhaps the most puzzling aspect of the entire situation. In galactic history, no species had ever provided assistance without expecting something in return. The idea of pure altruism on such a scale was almost incomprehensible. What the Council didn't realize was that the Terra Alliance was carefully studying galactic society, learning about changes that had occurred during their 15-year absence. The intelligence they gathered was disturbing. In the Alliance Command Center hidden in the Kuiper Belt, Fleet Commander Chen reviewed the latest reports from reconnaissance teams. "The situation is worse than we expected," she told the assembled Council representatives. "Social order is breaking down across multiple sectors. The economic disruption from our departure has created widespread instability, and the medical crises are claiming millions of lives." Flow between stars rippled with concern. "Are we responsible for this suffering?" "No," replied Crystal Song Deep firmly. "They made their choice. We are not obligated to sacrifice ourselves to fix their mistakes." But Dr. Rodriguez disagreed. "We may not be obligated, but we have the power to help. Doesn't that create a moral imperative?" Whisper in the void flickered thoughtfully. "The question is whether helping them now will teach them valuable lessons or simply enable their dependency on others." The debate had been ongoing for months. The Terra Alliance had the capability to solve most of the galaxy's problems quickly and efficiently. Their medical technology could cure diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia. Their engineering knowledge could rebuild failing infrastructure. Their diplomatic expertise could resolve conflicts that had raged for generations. But intervention carried risks. The Alliance was still significantly outnumbered by galactic civilization. If their true identity became known too early, they might face another exile, or worse, active persecution. The solution came from an unexpected source. Many legs working, the Builder representative, had been studying galactic social patterns with the analytical mind of an engineer. "The problem," the insectoid creature announced, "is not that they lack the ability to solve these problems. The problem is that they lack the will to change their thinking. They still believe that the old ways will work if they just try harder." Root of all stories, attending the meeting through bio-neural link from the Gardner homeworld, agreed. "Change must come from within, or it will not last. But sometimes external pressure can catalyze internal transformation." The singer representative created a complex harmony before speaking. "We propose a demonstration. Let them see what cooperation and innovation can accomplish. Then let them choose whether to embrace change or cling to stagnation." After extensive debate, the Council approved what they called the Revelation Protocol. The Terra Alliance would gradually reveal their identity, while demonstrating the benefits of their cooperative approach to civilization. Species that proved willing to change would be offered Alliance membership. Those that insisted on maintaining the old ways would be left to their own devices. The first phase began with a simple broadcast transmitted to every inhabited system in the galaxy. The message appeared simultaneously on all communication networks, overriding normal programming with casual ease that demonstrated technological superiority. The figure who appeared in the broadcast was immediately recognizable to anyone who had been alive 15 years earlier. Admiral Sarah Chen, former human ambassador to the Galactic Council, looked directly into the camera and spoke in her clear, calm voice. "Greetings to the species of the galaxy," she began. 15 years ago you voted to exile humanity from galactic civilization. You believed we were too disruptive, too innovative, too unwilling to accept the established order. You were correct. The broadcast was being watched in emergency sessions across the galaxy. In the council chambers, Zelthar's energy form pulsed, with shock and recognition. "We accepted your judgment," Chen continued, "and we returned to our home system. But we did not remain idle. We have spent these years learning, growing, and building something new. We have formed alliances with other species that your civilization rejected or ignored. Together we have created technologies and social systems that surpass anything in galactic history." Images accompanied her words. Fast living cities in space, ships that moved faster than light without engines, beings from dozens of species working together in perfect harmony. "For the past months we have been providing aid to worlds suffering from problems that your traditional methods cannot solve. We have done this not out of obligation, but out of compassion. We have not forgotten that many individuals in your civilization are good people trapped in a system that resists necessary change." The broadcast showed scenes of the mysterious aid missions, now revealed to be Terra Alliance operations. "We are now prepared to offer something that has never before existed in galactic history. A true alternative. Any species, any world, any group that is willing to embrace cooperation over competition, innovation over tradition, and freedom over control is welcome to join the Terra Alliance." The final images showed the incredible scope of what humanity and their allies had accomplished. Entire star systems transformed into gardens of life, technologies that seemed to border on magic, and societies where beings from radically different species worked together as equals. Groups who had grown tired of the endless bureaucracy and stagnation. On Alteri 7, where the first Terra Alliance medical mission had saved millions of lives, the planetary government called an emergency session. The debate lasted for days, but the conclusion was inevitable. A world that had experienced the benefits of Alliance technology and medical knowledge voted overwhelmingly to request membership in the Terra Alliance. Similar decisions were being made across the galaxy. Younger species, particularly those that had been marginalized by the traditional power structure, began formally requesting alliance membership. Even some older species found themselves reconsidering their positions as they watched their societies struggle with problems that the alliance could solve easily. The Galactic Council found itself facing an unprecedented crisis. For the first time in its history, member species were voluntarily leaving to join a competing organization. Traditional authority structures were being challenged not by rebellion, but by the simple appeal of a better alternative. Archon Zelthar called an emergency meeting of the Inner Council. But even that ancient body was divided. Some members wanted to negotiate with the Terra Alliance. Others demanded military action to prevent further defections. A few suggested that the Council itself should consider Alliance membership. "We must face reality," argued the Centauri representative. "Our civilization has stagnated for centuries. These humans and their allies have accomplished in 15 years what we have failed to do in millennia.
They are still too dangerous, countered the Altarian delegate. Look how quickly they have disrupted our entire social order. This proves we were right to exile them. The debate raged for days while more and more systems declared their intention to join the Terra Alliance. What had begun as a trickle of defections was becoming a flood. On the flagship New Dawn, Commander Chen watched the galactic situation develop with satisfaction but also caution. The Alliance was growing rapidly, but growth brought challenges. Integrating hundreds of new species with different cultures, technologies and social systems would test their cooperative principles to the limit. Status report on new member integration, she requested from her staff. Proceeding smoothly for the most part, replied Dr. Rodriguez. The species that are choosing to join us seem to genuinely embrace our cooperative philosophy. There have been surprisingly few conflicts. What about resistance from the traditional powers? Growing, but not yet organized. Most of the inner council species are still debating among themselves. However, intelligence suggests that some hardline factions are considering military intervention. Chen nodded grimly. They had always known this possibility existed. The question was whether the Terra Alliance was strong enough to defend itself and its new members if conflict came. The answer came sooner than expected. 3 months after the Revelation Protocol broadcast, a massive galactic fleet appeared at the edge of Sol system space. It was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 10,000 ships representing dozens of species, all under the command of the Galactic Council's military arm. Admiral Keth Tar of the Altarian Defense Force, serving as fleet commander, broadcast an ultimatum to the Sol system. Surrender immediately and submit to galactic authority, or face the consequences of your rebellion. The Terra Alliance response was swift and decisive. A single ship emerged from the inner system to meet the massive fleet. It was the New Dawn, looking impossibly small against the assembled armada. Admiral Keth Tar laughed when he saw the lone vessel approaching. One ship against 10,000? These humans have learned nothing about military reality. His amusement turned to shock when the New Dawn began to change. The ship expanded, its living hull flowing and reshaping itself until it was 10 times its original size. Smaller vessels detached from its structure like cells dividing, until a full fleet of impossible ships faced the Galactic Armada. Galactic Fleet, came Chen's voice over all communication channels. You have entered Terra Alliance space without permission. You will withdraw immediately or face defensive action. We have 10,000 ships, Kethtar replied. You have perhaps 50. Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Chen's response was to demonstrate why numbers didn't always matter. The Terra Alliance ships moved in ways that defied physics as the galactic forces understood it. They seemed to step in and out of normal space at will. Their weapons weren't destructive. Instead, they simply disabled galactic ships by interfacing directly with their computer systems and shutting them down peacefully. Within an hour, the entire galactic fleet was floating dead in space, their crews unharmed but their ships completely inoperative. Galactic Fleet, Chen broadcast. Your vessels will be repaired and returned to you. Your crews will be provided with food, water, and medical attention as needed. But you will remember this day. The Terra Alliance will defend itself and its members from any aggression. We prefer cooperation, but we are prepared for conflict. As rescue ships arrived to tend to the disabled galactic fleet, Chen made one final broadcast to the entire galaxy. The choice remains yours. Join us in building a better future, or continue clinging to a past that no longer serves you. But understand this. We will not be stopped. We will not be silenced. And we will not abandon those who choose to walk with us. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth, thinking they were getting rid of a problem. Instead, they had created the solution to problems they never knew they had. Now, as more and more worlds chose to join the Terra Alliance, it became clear that the future of galactic civilization would be determined not by ancient councils and traditional hierarchies, but by those brave enough to embrace change and cooperation over fear and control. Humanity had indeed chosen to walk its own way, and now the galaxy was learning to walk with them.